Thank you all for joining. Today is Wednesday, December 13th. This is the last V3 implementation call for the year. I will go ahead and turn it over to Lauri to start us off with a stakeholder introduction.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ben. I'm going to share my screen here. And we do have the tradition of starting off introducing one of our stakeholders on the call. And really the purpose of this is just to get to know each other and to build community and make some connections that we hope will lead to collaboration and have a little fun together. So our stakeholder today, when asked what do they like to do to relax or unwind, they enjoy playing hockey. And what was one of the first jobs they ever had? They said some things are best left in the past. So that is a bit mysterious, but good answer there. And then what do you like best about their job? They said looking into the story that is in the raw data and seeing the patterns and trends is one thing that they enjoy and appreciate about their job. So if anyone has any guesses, you can put a name in chat. There's not a lot of clues to go on today. But this is a new, relatively new data manager from Alaska. So Brian Emons, and I know he's on Alaskan time, so it's 7 a.m. there, and he typically watches these meetings recorded later, but he said he was going to wake up and try to join today. So we won't make you turn your camera on, Brian, but if you want to say hello, feel free to unmic. We need to give him permission maybe to unmic and say hello. So thanks for joining us, Brian. And he shared a picture from the NEMSIS annual meeting last summer here in Park City, Utah, and you'll probably see some familiar faces there as well. So welcome, Brian, and thanks for all the work you're doing in Alaska.
Thank you. It's great to be here. It is 7 a.m. in Alaska. But for a special occasion and a special group such as this one here, it's a special occasion. So it's great to be here, and it's great to be part of the group.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for waking up early. And we appreciate you sharing that with us today. And I'm next on the agenda as well for a V35 transition update. And you can see a wave of green coming across the country here we are excited about. So we've had more states transition since we've met last. Hopefully I've listed you here. So we have Hawaii, Arkansas, Indiana, Montana, Missouri, I know have changed recently. And then we are regularly speaking with all the purple states and yellow states, getting them ready as well. So if you know, I'm sure at this point that we have asked states to do their best to transition by the end of 2023 as a state to be able to receive 3.5 data. We recognize there may be some agencies that are straggling into the new year as they're making that transition, but we hope we can turn all states green in the next few weeks. And if you are in need of support or help, please reach out. Please communicate directly with your software vendor as well and reach out to the TAC if we can help in that process at all. And I wanted to share as well just some transition plans as we have heard them or as we've been made aware, and feel free to email us if any of this has changed or you'd like it updated. But hopefully this will kind of help with the communication between states and vendors. And this will be emailed out again this Friday, along with an updated chart showing the percentage of submissions that have come in recently in 3.4 compared to 3.5 in your state. I know a lot of you are tracking how many agencies are currently submitting in 3.5 and what percentage of your records are in that. So thanks for your help, and reach out if you have questions or if we can be of assistance. And I will pass it back to Jen for a maintenance update next.
Good morning, everybody. As I sent out an email last Friday, there was some maintenance performed yesterday. There could still be a couple of updates made today. So if you experience anything today, no need to open up a ticket. But if you do experience any issues running reports or doing compliance testing or anything like that, tomorrow, please make sure to open up a help desk ticket. There also may be some additional maintenance done next week on the 19th and 20th. Same thing, if you experience issues during the 19th and 20th, it's more than likely going to be associated with those updates. So please get back to us when you have a issue outside of that window. Are there any questions about the maintenance schedule? And then we will be updating I'm going to share my screen actually. We will be updating the maintenance schedule that is available on the NEMSIS website. If you go to the technical resources, NEMSIS maintenance schedule, and you can see by quarter, by month, when that window will be. Are there any questions or anything like that in regards to the maintenance update? I didn't think there would be. Usually there isn't. So let's talk about my next agenda item, which is the NEMPUB. That is the forward public facing list of change requests that we are discussing. And there's a couple of different ways that you can get to it. I'm going to put the link into the chat so that you can get to it that way as soon as I'm done presenting. But the other way that you can get to it is go to NEMSIS 101. And it will, there we go. And you can either click here on maintaining the data standard, or you can scroll down to maintaining the data standard. And there's a link right here for NEMSIS NEMPUB Home. And that's going to take you here. Anyone who's looked at it in the last year or so will notice that it is looking a little bit different. We removed the links and things like that you didn't need to see. So now the only thing listed here are those change requests that you may be wanting to look at, look up, put a note on, make a comment or something like that. There's 4 columns. You have the submitted requests currently under review. Anything in this column, you know that is moving forward in the process for the next version we're discussing. Right now, this is version 351. In progress would be anything that has actually been submitted to IT to start the work on, and in resolved is how it was completed. So you'll notice that there's rejected over here and won't do. Rejected, that means that after all of the discussions we've had with the EMS stakeholders, that includes here on the V3 implementation calls, during the state meetings with the data managers, during the annual meetings, all of the different discussions where these items have been brought up. After all of that, the decision was made to not move forward with that change request. So those were rejected. If you see something that says won't do, what that means is that something different happened. Like that particular ticket isn't going to be processed. And in the case of this one, what it is that one was joined with another ticket for e-dispatch 01, so that we only had one ticket discussing the changes that were being done with the e-dispatch 01 element. So that's how to kind of determine the different resolutions. Of course, if it says completed, that means that it has moved forward and all the work has been done for version 351. You can download this information into Excel or other formats. We sent that out last year sometime, but the directions are available. You just need to make sure that you're looking at the red boxes within the direction and clicking where that tells you to click, because there's 2 different types of exports you can do. One export, as you can see, don't push that export button. One export is not going to give it to you in a real usable format. It's pretty ugly, actually. And the other one will give it to you in Excel, or I believe Word or PDF. You get to decide how it gets exported. So here you go. Those are all your choices. Those directions are also available on the NEMSIS website. If you go to the 350 revisions, when will changes take place, you'll see here directions for exporting from public JIRA. You can download those and have them on your desktop. Are there any questions or anything about the NEMPUB, how to use it, what's being tracked there, how to look at it? And if you can raise your hand or you can put it into the chat. All righty. So having no questions, I know we've talked about this before. We just wanted to remind you that it is available for your review. The next topic is mine as well, and that is the last 3 version 351 changes that we are discussing. We're down to 3, which is great, and we want to have these done as much as we can. Let me look and see. Hey, Jeremy, I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot, so you may not have heard back yet. Have you heard any more information on the Richmond agitation sedation scale from ASAP?
Yeah, no, I need to follow up with them. I'm glad you reminded me. It's been on my to-do list, and I will follow up with them today.
Okay.
I know they had several conversations internally about that, and just need to follow up with them.
Okay, awesome. So once we get more information back from them, we will share that with you, the EMS stakeholders, so we can make that final move forward with version 351 or not to add the Richmond agitation sedation scale and how we want to add it, because there's a couple different ways that can go. One of the other items is the violence in EMS and whether or not to add some values to E other 06. Just to remind you what's in E other 06, this is the type of work-related injury, death, or suspected exposure. It's a very general selection. They're not going to give details or anything like that with this element. They would just note what type of injury that would be. And this would, of course, only involve the violence in EMS that occurred during a call where there was a patient or where there was an EMS event. Discussions last time was adding what some of the other Canada specifically has already added that they're tracking in their system, which is verbal abuse, intimidation, assault, sexual harassment, sexual assault. Are there some comments, concerns, thoughts on moving forward or real objection to adding those 5 values to E other 06?
In this Chad in Kansas, I mean, at this point, I would support adding those right now and moving forward. I mean, I think there can always be long-term discussions on it as you're talking about trying to identify violence and things that happens or injuries or exposures and things that happen on a call versus what just happens outside of a call within our industry. But I definitely don't think we should hold up moving these ones forward at this time. I think we can move these forwards and then make those changes and then maybe continue to have further discussions on if we need to add any additional elements, like even on the injury stuff. You know, that's fairly limited right now. Only 2 options on the injury piece. So definitely support moving forward right now with these added in, because it gives us the assault one, which some of us are looking for. And then hopefully once that's done, having further conversation about additional ones later.
Thank you, Chad. Any other thoughts or concerns on adding these 5? This seems to be what we've boiled it down to. There was a much longer list originally that we were talking about. And these 5 seem to be, I'm sorry, 6. I keep saying 5. These 6 seem to be the ones that 1, 2, 3, 4, no, it is 5 that everybody has agreed on. Any, other than my counting skills, are there any other thoughts or concerns anyone wants to voice? All right.
We don't care if it's the patient or someone in the house or just some random person who does one of these things, right?
Correct. So this is just if this is for how it affects the EMS clinician that is on the call, the type of work-related injury, death, or suspected exposure. So it wouldn't matter who had done the assault. It just occurred during the call, whether it was a bystander or that kind of information is more than likely going to be tracked a little bit separate than the EPCR system. But that decision has not been made, so I don't want anyone to take that to the bank. And then Ty, you have a comment that says assault versus battery. Did you want to, I'm not sure.
Yeah, just in Florida, I don't know if this is everywhere else, assault can be a verbal assault. It's usually not a physical act. Battery is the physical act. So I don't know what you were looking for specifically with that one, but I don't know how technical you want to get with it, because this would be a legal document.
So we do have verbal abuse. Do we need to, does anyone think that we need to say physical assault?
Jim, we might have to have Ryan look at, or Paige Wolfberg North look at that and say verbal abuse might have to change to verbal assault. I don't know the difference between verbal abuse and assault in terms of verbal, but if Ty makes a very good point, if the word we use, abuse versus assault, makes a big difference, maybe we need to run that by Ryan and ask him.
I hate to be that guy, but I am that guy.
No, because
No, I'm glad you brought it up. I'm very glad you brought it up. It's a good point. We're going off of our knowledge and what we're interested in, but we need to understand the ramifications of the selections.
all right, so we will do that. We'll check with PWW on the verbiage and what the implications could be with the different terminology. And then the last one is the situation 07 chief complaint primary anatomic location. There was some discussion about, and let's get that up so everybody can, oops, sorry, wrong one. So everyone can see what we're discussing. You know, I type really well when not everyone can't see me typing. There we go. So E situation 07 chief complaint anatomic location, and the current definition is the primary anatomic location of the chief complaint as identified by the EMS personnel. And the conversation around this has been that chief complaint is identified by the patient themselves and the impression is identified by the EMS personnel. And so that's been the discussion around this, this particular item. So one of the suggestions had been change primary anatomic location of the chief complaint, change that definition to read primary anatomic location of the chief complaint. The other suggestion was to change the title of the element rather than changing the definition and say impression anatomic location. And that's kind of where this one has been going back and forth. Are there any thoughts, comments, concerns on which way to go? Are we trying to track in E situation 07 and E situation 08, the chief complaint, what the patient is complaining about, where it's located and what organ systems affected? Or are we trying to track? And the other bigger item that got brought up during the data manager's call was that changing this now to the impression versus the chief complaint, just changing the elements themselves could really impact the education about how the crews have been trained thus far to complete those elements. And it might be a more significant change than just the fact that we changed the definition a little bit, or just the fact that we changed the title. So are there thoughts, opinions, keeping that in mind about whether we should move this item forward in 351, or maybe this needs more consideration and needs to be in the next version change that we go to, and we table it for the next version? Are there any thoughts, concerns, ideas?
When they record impressions in ICD-10, they get a lot of the anatomic location information from ICD-10 itself. So if that's the real intention of this element, it might be redundant. But if it's just indication from the patient, then it's kind of fine as is. Because this can also be the EMS clarifying what the patient is complaining about.
Thanks, David. Are there any other thoughts or items on this? I feel like this one hasn't been fleshed out enough, that there's more consideration to it, and maybe it's a bigger discussion and it might need to move to this next version. Is there anyone that would be against moving that to allow us? I don't want to make change for change's sake, right? Or find out that it didn't work because we tried to rush it to make it for this version. Is there anybody that is against moving it to the next version conversation? And I am trying to keep an eye on the chat as well.
In this chat in Kansas again, and this, I guess this would be more of a question for kind of the group and David and any others, because just a situation we recently ran into, and we've kind of been discussing it related to this specific element and the PCR overall, is we've got a case going on right now that involves a gunshot wound to the head from an investigation standpoint. And so we don't run data off of exam information. Like and maybe other states do, and it'd be great to know and understand that, but we don't run any data currently based off of what they're finding in their exam and how they're documenting that in the exam. And so one of the things we were trying to identify in one specific large urban agency was the number of firearms injuries that involved a gunshot wound to the head. And what we found in running that data was that we really couldn't identify. We could identify firearms injuries and how many of those there were, but not all of them were we able to identify a location. And we discussed that this specific piece here, if it was the crew members documenting where that occurred, particular injury or shooting occurred, we would have that answer because they would be putting head as the anatomic location for it. And so that's one of the issues we've run into. So I'd be curious to know what other states or vendors may be doing or how they would be able to answer that specific question. And maybe we're not looking in the right field and it would change our opinion on whether this one needs to change or not.
It's kind of it seems like, since the exam section has that exact thing you're saying, it seems like that's the place to look. It literally has head gunshot wounds exactly there. Is it a software limitation that you can't do that reporting?
No, it's probably just our I think at this point we've steered clear of a lot of just trying to search exam findings just because of the amount of stuff that crew members are able to document underneath of, when they go to document the head, they're not just documenting potentially the gunshot wound. They may be documenting 6 other things or pertinent negatives or this and that. And so it very easily could just be us not being very good at extracting the one specific element of it. So we've kind of steered clear of using that. But if that's the best way and what others are using, I mean, we absolutely will dive down that path. Because if we can grab that information somewhere else, it makes us probably be more supportive of leaving the element that we're talking about exactly as it is. Like, what is the patient, based off of their complaint, what are they complaining is the problem? Because the crew then ultimately is going to document what they find in their impression and in their assessment.
Thanks, Chad. Are there any other thoughts or items on this one? And we're talking about the E situation 07. Chris Haas from Document, since we can't decide the specific objective for this question, is it an indication from the patient or the provider? Do we need the question at all? Thanks, Chris.
And the EMS may be the ones determining this if the patient is unconscious. So in the case where the patient is unconscious, the definition as is correct.
So it does sound like we still need to have quite a bit of discussion around this particular item. And how to change it to make it work or be more effective, or do we leave it as is and actually, let me rephrase this. How we make that change seems to really be up in the air. What would be most effective for the EMS clinicians in the field completing the documentation, for the states who need to get the information out of the documentation? And what's funny is when this one first came in, I thought, oh, this will be an easy one. And then we still do, we're still waiting to hear on this one. So that is all from me. If there's no other comments or concerns on E-Situation 07. All right, and then I am going to turn it back to Lauri.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jen. And I'm just going to share my screen here. We just have a new grant opportunity. This has been emailed out to states, but we wanted to highlight it today, especially because the deadline's coming up soon in January, and make sure everyone was aware of it, either for yourselves or others in your state or coworkers that may be interested. So you can pass this information along. But this comes from the Road to Zero Coalition, and it's funded by NHTSA. It shares here these grants support innovative, promising projects, programs, and research to improve overall roadway safety, address disparities, and achieve their mission. And let me share here, just some focus of the program is that they are reinforcing effective measures that are going on, enhancing life-saving technologies in vehicles or infrastructure, and adopting a safe systems approach. And then there's also some information here from their website. And the safe system approach does include post-crash care. And so EMS data would definitely fall under that category. They're also looking at safe speeds, safe road users, safe vehicles, and safe roads in general. So if you can think of something creatively that may fall into one of those categories, we'd encourage you to apply for this. And these are some examples of 2023 award recipients from different states. They're outlined here, but some were related to e-bicycle safety, collecting data and deploying tools for evidence-based advocacy and decision-making. In Denver, focusing again on e-bike education, safety and training. Miami-Dade County had one that was awarded, let's see, working initiative that includes developing a vision zero data sharing dashboard and launching a multilingual post-project outreach and educational program. And then the Vision Zero Technology Fund that underwrites life-saving vehicle technologies such as backup cameras on vehicles and things like that. So we would encourage you to explore this, and we're going to post the information on our grant guidance sheet. And today I will share the link in chat as well if it's something you want to look into. So encourage you to look at that. And again, the deadline's coming up in just a few weeks in the middle of January. I will pass it off to Eric next. Eric, I think you're going to discuss a little bit the vendor attendance at our annual meeting.
Can you see me now?
Yes.
Excellent. Good afternoon, all. So in the past couple of years since COVID, we had made an exception to allow people to attend the annual meeting virtually. And this year, we're going to change that back to our original focus, which was having people attend. You have to attend the meeting physically. I apologize. Basically, the reason for doing that is there's a lot of these meetings now, and there's a lot of breakouts, and it's going to be difficult to keep people in these. Sorry, my internet connection is just a little crazy today, so I'm going to take the video down. It's a lot more difficult to get people into some of these breakout rooms and things that are going on. So it's going to be required that everybody come back in person. We are going to be changing locations again this year, just because of the nature of the size of the way that the meeting's growing. The different aspects and elements require us to have more breakouts and things. The only way we can do that is be in a different facility. So there'll be more information about that come out soon. I do know that Monet has worked with them to contract some dates. So we'll be sending all of that out just as soon as we possibly can. The actual meeting itself, last year we had the interoperability piece built onto the front. I think you can certainly expect that again. We'll put out a call for topics as we've done in the past. And if people feel strongly about having a specific breakout or having a specific group of people come together for something, please start to think about that now and let us know what that would be. And we will get that put on the actual agenda. I hope that a lot of you are, I just kind of roll into the next thing on my list for the agenda. A lot of you are looking at some of the grant opportunities that are out there through NHTSA's Office of EMS. There's an unprecedented amount of money available. I know it takes a little extra time and effort. I will tell you that the submissions for these grants are not, these 20, 30, 40 page documents. It's not this massive writing project. We've provided you with a lot of the information already. We've provided you with some examples of things that you could submit for. So please take advantage of those opportunities. Lauri makes them available as soon as we know about them. If you have questions or you need some assistance, please reach out to Lauri or myself. And if we can't answer it, we'll get you connected with the right folks at DOT, whether that's at headquarters or your region or your state level. And I'll stop there and ask if there's any questions for me. I guess just one other quick thing, Lauri and Jen, I heard the conversation, was listening about the violence data set. And I think we're going to see, in addition to what's been proposed here, additional data elements. The question is just how they get built in and where they come from. So, they mentioned we're working with Dr. Elizabeth Donnelly. We're also working with Jennifer at Drexel, and the IAFF and IAFC have been working on this topic. And the USFA has been tracking firefighter injury a bit better than we have in terms of EMS personnel over the years. So we're building on lessons learned. I hope to have a clean data set for all the data elements we'd like sometime very early into the next year. And then we can build that out. But for right now, that's not finalized. Again, any questions for me? If not, thank you all for the work that you do. I presented at FICOMS last week, and we were talking about the workforce challenges. And I made it very clear, and have been adding this to any workforce conversations, that workforce is not just limited to the EMS clinicians in the field, that keeping and sustaining and providing professional growth and educational opportunities for the data managers, for the data folks in the EMS system has been quite challenging as well. I know there's turnovers within the vendors. I know there's turnovers within the state data managers, and there's turnovers at the TAC that we've not seen before. All for reasons, people are getting offered money, they're taking other jobs, they're promoting up. So keeping and sustaining a good workforce to do this side of the EMS system is a challenge as well. And I really appreciate all the extra time and effort that you put into it. Please have a great, safe, and wonderful holiday season. And I look forward to seeing you all back here in January. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Eric. Just a couple announcements, and we'll head into open forum. We have a public training on Tuesday, January 9th from noon to 1 Eastern on NEMSIS data use agreements with Monet and Miriam Allen. And then the December 27th meeting is canceled. That's right after Christmas, before New Year's. So the next meeting will be January 10th, 2024, with the joining information below that. I'll head into open forum now if anyone has anything they'd like to bring up. And I do see a couple other questions about dates for annual meeting, as well as some other options. And I don't know if Lauri, you want to hop in there?
Yeah, I can just say we're kind of in final contract negotiations. So we hope to be able to announce that after the first of the year, as soon as possible, maybe on our first V3 call there. And still discussing as well virtual options, possibly for non-vendor attendees. So that's still in conversation, nothing decided yet, but we will let you know once we know.
Is there anything else for open forum? Anything else anyone would like to bring up or address? And you're welcome to.
Go ahead.
From what Eric Chaney said, that the fire is tracking the injuries pretty well right now. I wonder about if we could borrow their data set to, if it's tried and true, that's one thing. If the data sets could be compatible, that's even better, potentially. So just a thought on that.
Yeah, David, this is a good point. They have a near miss program, firefighter injury program. We have actually looked at that. They do a lot of work with Drexel University, Jennifer Taylor there, and we have made sure that we've had her engaged in the efforts that we've had underway. So there's some compatibility, there's some incompatibility like everything else, but certainly we want to keep those aligned as best we can.
Okay.
And then for open forum, Ben, I have had a couple of vendors that have brought up some questions they wanted to have. Hopefully there's a few state data managers on here that can help us to determine how the states are using their state data set. So S element 01 specifically is where the question lies. S element 01, and you know what, maybe I should share my screen really quick. So S element 01 is where the states list which elements they are collecting or requiring. And so why that has come up is there's been a few vendors that look at that list and send only the elements that are on that list, thinking that that's what the state wants to see, is just those elements. So I think the question really is around whether or not all of the states want all of the elements if they're collected, regardless of if they're listed in S element 01, or if the states are actually using S element 01 to tell the EPCR vendors and the EMS provider agencies what data they want to receive. Are there any state data managers that are on the call that would be willing to talk about how they're using the S element 01 within their state data set? It's so quiet. So that's okay if you don't have time right now, or you need to check into how you're using it or how you've set it up within your state. If you're willing to share that with me so that I can share that with the vendors in our quarterly January meeting, that would be fantastic. It's just to help them know the expectations that are there from the states in regards to submitting the data to you and getting you everything that you want to have or that you need. So thank you. That's if there's no comments or concerns or anything like that, please take it back, Ben.
Well, that actually kind of wraps things up. I don't know if anybody has anything else for open forum.
I think it's already been shared, but it's probably worth noting again that this will be our only V3 call for the month of December. So we will not be having one at the end of the month because we know it's a holiday week. A lot of people will be out. So we will see you in January.